Hello everyone and welcome to FiST Chat, the vodcast that features discussions on the topics of film, science and technology. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined once again by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern. How are we today, Steve?
I'm good, Ben. Hello, FiST Chat fans. Welcome to another action-packed episode where we look at drugs in sport and whether they'll ever stop taking them.
Absolutely, and some interesting results in our poll from this week on this topic. But before we get to that, our usual housekeeping, don't forget our website, www.fistchat.com. You can get all our links there. You can subscribe to our audio via iTunes, RSS and FeedBurner and leave some comments if you feel the urge to. We'd love to hear from you there. You can catch all of our episodes, including this one, on YouTube, Vimeo and Digicosm TV, and interact with us on Twitter, Google Plus and Facebook. We'd love to hear from you. And of course, we've got our supplementary content, the weekly blogs, photography on Instagram and Flickr. And and recommend us to anyone who may be interested. I'm sure we want to have as many people in our chats as possible. Now, we're going to be talking today about whether professional sport will ever be drug-free, and perhaps a place to start on this particular topic was our poll from last week with the question, will professional sport ever be drug-free? And it was an emphatic no. We can pretty much say it was 100% no, 0% yes. Someone did vote, one vote yes, but then we had a comment, damn, I meant no. Is that a bit of an indictment on, apart from the fact that, you know, we've come to expect drugs in professional sport, but the fact that the general public just assumed that the whole thing's drugged out and rigged from the beginning. That
you said it there, Ben. We've come to expect it, and yeah. I think that's because drugs have been in sport ever since sport was first recorded. Drugs are still in sport today. Some are legal. Some are legal for you and me, Ben, but illegal for professional athletes. And if you look at the training regimes today, they're still taking potions, supplements, injecting factors, all sorts of things that may be legal in most cases. Sometimes they're not legal. There could be mistakes or could be deliberate. We don't know. But the fact is that that's very much part and parcel of, a sporting training program. And because of that, they're very much part of sport.
Yeah, because everyone wants to be, go down in the history books as number one with the gold medal around their neck or whatever else. It's fascinating too, but I mean, kind of, robs it of the actual meaning of getting the, first place or whatever. And if you're having to resort to, extra methods to get there.
But I mean, it's a fine line between what's restricted under the World Anti-Doping Authority Code and what isn't restricted. And, you can use a hyperbaric chamber as part of your recovery program, or you can use altitude chambers or an altitude training program to boost your red blood cell count. And in both those cases, you're doing things that are very, very similar to actually taking like illegal substances. Now, for some reason, they're not viewed as being illegal or cheating. But if you've got a lot of money behind you, you can afford those. If you come from a poor country, you can't. And yet they do the same things as performance-enhancing drugs. And the other thing, of course, is painkillers. Very few painkillers are restricted, and they allow you to compete when otherwise you wouldn't be able to. Now, that's performance-enhancing. So,
I mean, what do you think, just looking at it from a health perspective for these athletes, I mean, we'll get into this really good ABC article which talks about the effects on the body and that sort of thing long term, but is it a bit like when you're, I don't know, it's a bit simplistic, but, like say if you have a coffee and that perks you up at the expense of a later crash, is there a similar sort of thing happening here with drugs? If you're pushing the body too hard artificially, is that going to lead to problems later?
Well, this is very interesting. Yes, it is. And there's actually an argument to allow some of the restricted substances actually to be legal. Now, so what happens at the moment is those restricted substances are all illegal.
Yeah.
But typically what would happen, Ben, if you and I were under a lot of physical stress, a lot of pressure, maybe emotionally, maybe physically through our daily lives, if we went to the doctor, he might give us a blood test. And he'll say, you've got low counts of this, you've got low counts of that, you don't have normal hormone regulation, you're not well.
Yeah.
And I'll give you some of these drugs that will help your body overcome the physical stress you're under.
Yeah.
Now, athletes train very hard. They're under a lot of physical and emotional stress. Very often their hormone levels and a lot of the natural actions that occur in the body are suppressed, making them, if they were one of us, ill.
Yeah.
In which case a doctor would instantly give them a substance to raise those levels and get them back to normal.
Yeah.
However, under the anti-doping code, they can't. Yeah. So they're risking long-term health, actually, probably by not having access to these drugs.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a bit of a contradiction, and I don't think anyone has the answer.
Well, in this ABC article that relates to this, like you were saying, an argument for the use of supplements, there's a Dr. Robin Wilcourt, who's a specialist in anti-aging and sports medicine, and he's basically saying that what you were just saying there, that there's a bit of a, what would you call it, something missing in that conversation as far as making sure that everyone who competes has the proper health treatment afterwards. But as he was saying, humans in these types of sports are put under so much stress, the body's under so much stress that it can actually take a long time to repair them, especially if, there hasn't been anything to be done about it. But as they're saying, unfortunately, right now, there are players that are just left to fend for themselves as far as, getting
absolutely. What happens typically is that that can be very serious effects. So whether or not you're on drugs, legal or otherwise, in part of your training program, nobody trains less than the other. So I think there's a bit of a myth that dopers, perhaps have an easy ride. They train just as hard as somebody who's not on illegal substances. But the difference is that very often these substances will help their body recover quicker, or they will get greater advantage from the training that they do. Yeah. And that's critically what it is. And I think a lot of the times that these advantages they get are because they're actually healthier because of the drugs they're taking, not so much that the drugs are necessarily having a direct effect on their performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe just to round this out, and this is probably taking it from a different angle, is we've had quite a few big high-profile cases hit the media of, the Lance Armstrong one being the big one. And in Australia, we've had, we'll get to this on one of our news bites, so we've had some problems in the AFL with all this drug stuff. What about that side of it, the media spotlight? Is it, do you think there's a bit of ego in there too, that, by taking this sort of thing, it helps them to, get them out there and sort of, it obviously backfired in Lance Armstrong's case.
Yeah. But I think, it's interesting, the role of the media. On the one hand, the media builds these people up as heroes. And in a lot of ways, it does actually, put pressure on people to succeed. There's a lot of money at stake, a lot of pride at stake. The media does play a role in probably encouraging and then at times disguising drug culture. Having said that, the media is almost a split personality on this, is that they do a fantastic job of uncovering a story and then getting to the bottom of it, probably better than police forces or investigators could. So, if you look at the Lance Armstrong case, there were several journalists who pursued him relentlessly for years. And I think that with regards to the Australian situation, if there is a story underneath that report, the media will find it and bring it to the public's attention. So, it's a bit of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde there, but ultimately the media will do the right job at the end of the day.
I guess the whole drugs in professional sport thing is kind of like that dark underbelly of the sporting heroic triumph. As a society we push our sporting heroes up as these big idols.
That's right.
And sometimes it's not necessarily the case.
No, that's right. And of course, that's where the sport really hurts. And in most countries, our sporting heroes, have a lot of public admiration. And when we get taken for a ride as members of the public, we really hurt, and it really hurts the sport. And cycling's a very good example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll move on to our news bites now, and they're all sport related. Although our film news bite doesn't have any drugs in it, but the top 50 greatest sports movies. Now, there's a link here that we'll throw up on our social media feeds from Empire Online that lists the 50 greatest sports movies. We won't necessarily go into those now, but I was just wondering, Steve, like if we could say maybe one of our favourite ones. For me, I actually one of my favourite sports films is Any Given Sunday by Oliver Stone. A very sort of a different take on it. It's none of that Chariots of Fire stuff. It's sort of dark and gritty, and sort of gives you a bit of a window into what's going on behind the scenes. And it's a film that I like. Do you have anything that sticks in mind as a favourite sports film?
Oh, I'm going a bit retro here. I thought Slapshot is just hilarious and an all-time favourite. They don't make films like that anymore. As a young kid, I remember on TV seeing Le Mans, which was at the time that was an amazing film as well. And I'm trying to think some other ones, but I mean those two are all-time classics, I guess, and they're the ones that kind of stick with you.
Absolutely. All right, now.
Geez, that's funny.
Absolutely. Now, our science news bite from The Age, and we alluded to this before. AFL players boss Matt Finnis has declared war upon Maverick sports scientists as disturbing evidence continued to unfold of unusual chemical practices undertaken in 2012 at Essendon. Fairfax Media can confirm that Essendon footballers were injected in their stomachs by SAC sports official Stephen Dank at the club last season, as well as being intravenously fed substances at a Botox clinic near Windy Hill. That's starting to get a bit more intricate than the normal sort of things that we hear about, isn't it?
Oh, Ben, those sorts of images, conjure ideas of Frankenstein and stuff like that. But Matt Finnis, seriously, it's every club's role as an employer and to look after the welfare of their employees. Nobody in this should be able to claim there was some rogue sports scientist if the clubs were doing their jobs. They've got full medical teams. How can this happen? I don't think that the AFL should be out there, and Players Association people washing their hands of it. Yeah. They run education programs, and I'm not affiliated with the AFL and probably never will be after this, but, they're the ones that breed not sports scientists, but sports wackos.
Yeah.
And, maybe this is just their chickens coming home to roost.
Yeah. Yeah.
There goes any chance of working for the AFL.
We'll stick with FiST chat then, yeah. All right, and finally our tech news bite, sports doping drugs available online. This was actually an interesting angle from technologyreview.com. Puts another different spin on this again, that the drugs not yet approved for medical use are easily accessible online to cheating athletes. An experimental drug that mimics the effects of steroids, such as testosterone, without many of the harmful side effects, is freely available online. The research appears to be quite interesting, and it's in the current issue of the journal Drug Testing and Analysis. That's a very different point of view as well. You can eBay your, figuratively speaking, your drugs.
To me, this is far more scarier than the idea of somebody getting injected in the stomach, because we don't know what they were being injected with. They could have been perfectly legitimate compounds.
Yeah.
The sale of compounds that haven't been tested, and usually they're veterinary, maybe they've been used on horses or something like that. That is scary that the players are being exposed to that.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of thing that really must be rubbed out for any elite athlete's health and safety.
And who knows what you're getting as well. I mean...
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I will just say on this, though, that it won't matter in another decade or so, because people will be genetically engineered to have all of these drugs and supplements that are being added artificially now. So, I think we'll see drugs in sport change more to genetic engineering in sport in the future.
Absolutely. All right, Steve, we're out of time, so thanks again for the chat.
Thank you, FiST Chat fans. If you're using drugs or if you've seen anyone using drugs and playing sport, tweet us immediately.
Absolutely.
We'll get to the bottom of this on behalf of the media.
Exactly. All right, so that's it for this week's episode. So we'll catch you next week.